Hello guys, Salute Jerry speaking. Welcome to Bedtime Stories, episode number 322. Today read you a little golden book biography about George W. Bush. So let's read it now, shall we? See what we got for us. A little golden biography book about George W. Bush. This is written by Joanne Keefe, illustrated by Jim Starr, something like that. I haven't announced his last name. Sorry. Anyway, published by Golden Book New York release, copyright 2023, all rights reserved. See here's the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush. Son of George H.W. Bush. Excuse me. Anyway, he was born on, George Walker Bush, was the 43rd President of the United States in America. But long before that, he was Georgie, the oldest of 6 kids growing up in the Midland, Texas. George was born July 6, 1946. He was named after his father, George Hubert Walker Bush. Probably was, as his family called him, worked with his Texas oil company, okay? George's mother was Barbara, but everyone knew her as Bar. The Bush family loves nicknames, okay? It all makes sense now in any way. So, there you go, even though George W. Bush makes sense in any way. So, there you go on that. Next page. Anyway, young George was always on the go. He played a little league baseball and dreamed of becoming a professional player someday. He easily made friends by hacking funny and telling jokes, but George could be serious as well. He ran for class president in junior high school and won. When George turned 15, his parents enrolled him in boarding school. Phillips Academy was in Unholder, somewhere like that, Massachusetts. More than 2,000 miles from Texas. First, George was homesick and not used to the cold New England winter, but he soon made new friends and the best snowballs ever. Wow. It all makes sense now in any way. So, it's just good enough for George W. Bush. So, there you go on that. So, it makes it more easier than expected. Next page. Anyway, when George wasn't studying, he played baseball and basketball. One day, George decided to try something new. He became a cheerleader. Because of his great school spirit, George was made head cheerleader of the squad. George graduated from high school and went on to Yale University, where he studied history. While some history was being made, it was in the 60s when music and fashion was big news and astronauts rocketed to space, okay? It was also an uneasy time in the country, as American troops were fighting a long war in Vietnam, okay? Even though that makes more sense in any way. So there you go on that. So, there you go. Next page. Anyway, when the Vietnam War was still being fought when George graduated from college, he returned home to join the Texas Air National Guard, where he trained as a fighter pilot. George loved flying jets, but he would soon set his sights on a much different future. Following his dad's footsteps, George got a job in an oil company. Texas produced the most oil in the United States, so George was in the right place. He was in the right place again where he met William Welsh, the Friends Barbecue. Okay? George liked the friendly librarian with the bright blue eyes and asked her on the date. 3 months later, they got married. It just all makes sense now in any way, so there you go on that, even though they're both married from the 70s, or 60s rather. I don't know, it makes sense to me, so there you go. Next page. Anyway, George Laura put down roots in the home state of Texas, and November 1981, the twin girls, Barbara and Jenna, were born. Jenna was named after Laura's mom. Barbara was named after George's mom. But soon after, something exciting was about to happen for George's dad. George's father had left the oil industry to work in politics. In 1980, he became president of Ronald Reagan's vice president. 8 years later, it was Vice President Bush turned to run for president, okay? George helped his dad with the campaign, and his hard work paid off. In November 1988, George Herbert Walker Bush was elected the 41st President of the United States. Even though it's great more sense. Now, the George H.W. Bush has died in 2018. I talked about an FWL episode number, one of the episodes of FWL seasons, back in 2019, in April, about his death in 2018 of December. It was tragic, but overall, it was worth it. It was worth it. But anyway, next page. Anyway, having a dad in the White House firing up George's own political dream. But he'd never forget the dream he had since he was a kid. Play baseball. If George could play professional ball, it would be the next big thing. George became go under the Texas Rangers baseball team. Exactly. George loved going to the games and greeting fans, but he also still loved politics. He decided to run for Texas governor. George won the election and kept his campaign promises. And he increased school spend, and he made Texas a lead producer that win energy in the country. I agree 1,000,000%. He's good at this, so they go not. So it all makes sense now in any way. Next page. Anyway, in his 4th year of office, Governor Bush decided to think even bigger. He ran for the highest office in the land, President of the United States. Wow. The race between George and Vice President Al Gore was long and close. In the end, George Walker Bush decided to declare the 43rd President of the United States. George was sworn in on January 20th, 2001, becoming the second son of a former United States President to become President of the United States. First was John Quincy Adams, son of President John Adams. Just tried to make sense in any way, even though it's a great memory to me. When I was a kid, there was a George W. Bush and the First Lady Laura Bush, and then there's President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. Now, unfortunately, with these two things when I was in my early adulthood, it's gonna get too much. So there you go. Next page. Anyway, George wasn't president for long before something terrible has happened. On the morning of September 11, 2001, George was in Florida reading a storybook to the class of second graders when he was receiving the bad news. Now, at the time, I was in Georgia in school, and if you watch this, Alex, his last name starts with an L. He was a game show fan, by the way. Yes, I was in school. I was only 6 years old in 1st grade when all of a sudden 9/11 happened, and Mom had to pick me up, and suddenly it was all terrible. I didn't know what it was in the time. It was too much, That's just me. Anyway, 2 planes have crashed into the Twin Towers on the World Trade Center in New York City. Another plane has crashed in the nation's Pentagon in Washington, D.C. one more plane. Do I have to keep doing these burps while I'm reading? Jesus, there. Went down in the field in Pennsylvania. Wow. Too much information right there and we never forget 9/11 in about back in 2001. I was only 6 and it was I was in first grade, so in West Forest Elementary. That was my last year at West Forest Elementary, so there you go. Next page. These attacks shocked the world, especially the people in New York City. George visited the site of the fallen World Trade Center, and he praised the heroes of 9/11. The firefighters, police officers, construction workers, and neighbors helping those in need. George's second term as president saw another terrible event, Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, I saw many times about Hurricane Katrina over the news many times over the years. Behind the Music has things about this on Phil Basomio feels sad about his home place being tragic on the events on Hurricane Katrina. It's too much. Anyway, the tropical storm is home the most destructive in American history. George brought comfort to the people along the Gulf Coast. He also brought help. They signed billions of dollars in relief packages and sent thousands of National Guards troops instead in search and rescue missions. Yup, it's too much, but it's also one of the terrible things happening in both 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina from 2001 and 2005 respectively. It's too much. And many over the years of tragic events, and I was only 6 and 10 respectively. Well, 10 because I was in Georgetown Elementary School, and at the time, yes, I didn't get hit by a hurricane, thank God, because I was in school one time because I was getting ready to, and didn't do much in hurricane, so at the time, that was New Orleans at the time. That was pretty much good right there. That's not good right there, excuse me. It's good for Georgia, not good for nearby places in Hurricane Katrina. Next page. Back in the White House, George brought about more positive changes in the nation. He worked to improve schools, passed a clean energy bill to help reduce pollution, made medicine more affordable for Americans or adults. Exactly. I agree with you there, George W. Bush. 1,000,000%. With all that work, George still found time to have fun. He jogged almost every day, played ball with his pops. Barney and Mrs. Beasley. And he enjoyed meals cooked by the White House chefs. His favorite is oh my God. Talking Lunchbox love this. My number one favorite food pizza is about to be cheeseburger pizza. And boy, I'm lucky. I have a puppet named Talking Lunchbox in the time, and you're talking about cheeseburger pizza. And if you say Krabby Patty, Jack and Drew, I'm gonna get you because it's cheeseburger. And if you're gonna if you say Krabby Patty, I'll kick you out of this. It's just a joke, people. Anyway, next page. Anyway, in 2008, President George W. Bush's second term as president came to an end. Okay? It was time for the Bush family to welcome the next first family to the White House. Now it's the Obamas. And that is the exactly thing what they're going to do. And I pronounce it wrong, and that is the Obamas instead of the Obamas. I was trying to pronounce it wrong, but it turned to be Obamas. But anyway, the last page of the book saying this. After moving back to Texas, George decided to again try something new. He learned how to paint, which he continues to do today. George enjoys painting portraits of heroes, world leaders, and even his pets. George W. Bush went from the class president to president of the United States. Along the way, he helped people in need, solved problems, and made many friends. He also made his biggest dreams come true. I agree, 1,000,000%. So there you go on that. So there you go. So that was a little biography book about George W. Bush. What do I think about this book? I think it was amazing. So far, this book was a success. And that was Bedtime Stories episode number 322. Hope you enjoy it. There will not be a Bedtime Stories episode for the next 2 days because, for reasons. One, because I'm going to see the new album by Metallica, 72 Seasons in theaters, and the listening party at the Abercorn Street. And two, I'll be doing a boxing meal for that day because I'll have to get ready for that and be lookout for it. So there you go on that. The next episode I'm doing will be on Saturday. So be lookout for it. So there you go. Till next time, Sue Johnson, Papa, baby. Good movie, Sue. Out. See ya.